You ever stop and think about all the digital whispers happening around us? Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all these invisible connections.
Hmm.
And kind of looking in that mix are some seriously sneaky cyber threats just looking for an opening.
Yeah, definitely.
Today, we're diving deep into those digital backdoors and blind spots, the common threat vectors and attack surfaces. Think of it like understanding all the ways a sneaky digital intruder might try to get into your house.
Exactly. We've sifted through quite a bit of information outlining these very entry points. And our goal today isn't just to throw jargon at you, but to give you real practical insight.
Right.
We want you to finish this deep dive, not just knowing the names of these threats, but truly understanding, how they work and, crucially, what you can actually do to stay safer.
Okay, let's kick things off with something super familiar, messages. Seems innocent enough, right?
Hmm.
But it turns out something as simple as an email can be a major weak spot.
Absolutely. Email has been a communication staple for ages, which, well, unfortunately means attackers have had just as long to figure out how to exploit it.
Makes sense.
This is where phishing comes into play. The core insight here is that attackers exploit the inherent trust we place in digital communication. They're essentially hacking our assumptions.
Hacking our assumptions. I like that.
Yeah. It's like getting a letter that looks totally official, maybe from your bank or even the tax folks, but it's actually a clever fake. It's designed to trick you into clicking a harmful link or, handing over your private info.
Like those tax refund emails.
Exactly. The source material even highlights those fake tax refund emails. We've all probably seen those land in our inboxes at some point.
Oh, without a doubt. And the fallout from those can be really nasty, can it? It's not just about getting a virus. It can snowball into, serious data breaches and major financial headaches.
That's right. And the threat has evolved beyond just email,
Mm.
given how glued we are to our phones. SMS, those regular text messages, have become another prime target. This is called smishing.
Smishing. Okay.
Same playbook as phishing, basically. But it lands as a text trying to con you into revealing something sensitive or downloading something malicious. You might get a text pretending to be your delivery company, asking for, say, updated payment details. It's a classic smishing attempt.
Wow. So even that little buzz in my pocket could be a danger sign. What about those instant messaging apps? I always figured those were a bit more locked down.
Well, you're right that many popular IM platforms boast stronger security measures, like end-to-end encryption. That definitely makes eavesdropping much harder.
Okay, good.
However, they're not completely bulletproof. Attackers can still try to slip infected files your way through IM, or they might use social engineering, essentially sweet-talking or tricking you through conversation to get you to click on a dodgy link.
Ah, okay.
So while generally more secure, you still need to keep your guard up about what you tap on and, frankly, who you trust online.
Gotcha. Keep your guard up. Okay, shifting gears from messages. I was surprised to learn that even a seemingly harmless image can be a threat vector. How on earth does that work?
Yeah, it's kind of sneaky. The surprising takeaway here is that in the digital world, even something passive like an image can be, well, active and malicious. It's a reminder that nothing we consume online is necessarily inert.
Huh.
Attackers can actually hide malicious code or links within image files. When you open the image, this hidden payload can be triggered. Think of it as a digital Trojan horse disguised as, just a picture.
Whoa, that's seriously underhanded. So just looking at a picture could potentially give someone the keys to my digital kingdom or even lock everything up with ransomware.
Precisely. That's why source material emphasizes the need for advanced image analysis tools, especially for organizations. It's about looking beyond the surface of a digital image.
Right, digging deeper. And if a picture can be a problem, I guess any file could be a potential carrier for bad stuff.
Exactly. Files are the digital packages we exchange constantly, right? And unfortunately, they can be used to deliver malicious software. When you open an infected file, it can exploit weaknesses in your software,
Oh.
allowing attackers to do things like steal your personal information or even take complete control of your computer remotely. Imagine opening a gift box that unexpectedly unleashes a swarm of digital gremlins.
Digital gremlins, I like that. So the name of the game is being super careful about where your files come from and having robust security software acting as your, digital bouncer.
Absolutely. File screening and blocking suspicious attachments are vital frontline defenses. Really crucial.
Now, this next one feels a bit like stepping back in time, but it's apparently still a thing. Voice calls? I'm almost surprised people still fall for those.
You'd be surprised at how effective they can still be. I mean, attackers are constantly refining their tactics. One common trick is caller ID spoofing.
Spoof? Yeah.
Yeah, where they can make it appear as though they're calling from a legitimate number, maybe even your own bank's number.
Oh, wow.
This plays on familiarity. It makes you more likely to answer and, engage.
Right. The familiar number pops up and you let your guard down. And then they try to sweet talk you into giving away sensitive information over the phone. That's vishing, isn't it?
That's the term, vishing, voice phishing. They might impersonate someone you trust and pressure you into revealing passwords or financial details. They can also leave deceptive voicemails, hoping you'll call back and walk right into their trap. The human voice and a convincing story can still be a very potent attack method. Don't underestimate it.
Okay, here's one that made me pause. Those little portable storage gadgets like USB drives, they seem so convenient, but they can be digital landmines, can't they?
Absolutely. Think about how often USB drives get passed around between colleagues, friends, even found in random places sometimes. An infected USB drive is like a digital cold sore. Plug it into a computer, and it can automatically spread malware, compromise security, and grant attackers unauthorized access.
The source even painted a really vivid picture. A malicious USB drive deliberately left in a reception area. Someone finds it, plugs it in out of curiosity to see what's on it, and boom.
Boom is right.
They've just unknowingly opened a gateway for an attacker into the entire system.
It's a stark illustration of how physical security and cybersecurity are really intertwined. The key takeaway here, as the text emphasizes, is that if you stumble upon a random USB drive, resist the urge to plug it into your work computer.
Definitely don't do that.
Instead, hand it over to your security team so they can safely analyze it in a controlled environment. A sandbox, as they call it.
Sandbox. Got it. That makes perfect sense. All right, next on our list, vulnerable software. This sounds like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole.
It really is, kinda. Vulnerable software simply refers to programs that have weaknesses or flaws that attackers can exploit. These weaknesses can stem from coding errors, design flaws, or simply using outdated software that hasn't received crucial security updates.
Like holes in the walls.
Exactly. Like having holes in the walls of your digital fortress that haven't been patched.
And if those holes aren't sealed up, the bad guys can just stroll right in, leading to data breaches, financial losses, the whole nightmare scenario. So keeping our software up to date is non-negotiable.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Regular security updates and patch management are absolutely essential for plugging those vulnerabilities. The source material also touches on vulnerability scanning, which is the process organizations use to proactively identify these weaknesses in their systems.
And there are different ways to go about scanning for these vulnerabilities, right? Client-based and agentless.
That's right. Client-based scanning involves installing a small piece of software and agent on each computer or host.
Okay.
This agent then automatically looks for known vulnerabilities and reports them back to a central server. It's sort of like having a dedicated security guard on patrol at every workstation, constantly checking for potential threats.
Okay, I get that. So what about agentless scanning? How does that work if you're not installing anything?
Well, agentless scanning, as the name implies, doesn't require installing any software on the target machines. Instead, specialized tools, the source mentions Nmap and Wireshark as examples, can remotely scan systems to identify open network ports and potential security weaknesses.
Remotely.
Yeah. Interestingly, the source points out that this method is often favored by threat actors during their initial reconnaissance because it doesn't leave any software footprint on the target system, making it harder to detect. It's like a burglar quietly checking all the windows and doors before attempting an entry.
That's a little unnerving. It really highlights why organizations need to be proactive with their own vulnerability scanning to find those weaknesses before the attackers do.
Precisely.
Now let's talk about those old systems and applications that nobody seems to want to update or retire. It feels like clinging to outdated tech is just asking for trouble.
You've hit the nail on the head there. Unsupported systems and applications, whether they are old legacy software or outdated third-party components, are prime targets for attackers.
Prime target.
These are systems where the software vendors are no longer releasing security updates, meaning any new vulnerabilities discovered will never be patched. It's like leaving a door wide open with a flashing neon sign that says easy access.
And the attackers know this, right? So they actively hunt for these vulnerable systems to exploit, potentially leading to unauthorized access, data theft, or even ransomware attacks. It really drives home the importance of keeping your digital house in order.
Precisely. Now let's pivot to the networks themselves. Unsecured networks are essentially rolling out the welcome mat for cyber trouble. And there are a few different flavors we need to consider.
Right, like wireless networks. We connect to Wi-Fi everywhere, coffee shops, airports, even our neighbors sometimes. How exposed are we on those public networks?
Well, wireless networks that use open system authentication, meaning they don't require a password, and lack encryption, are particularly risky. Think about that public Wi-Fi at a cafe. If it's not encrypted, any data you send or receive, including login credentials, personal messages, even financial details, is transmitted in plain text. Cybercriminals with the right tools can essentially eavesdrop on your entire online session.
That's a chilling thought. So what can we do to beef up the security of wireless networks? Are there ways?
Yeah, definitely. The source highlights a few key protective measures.
Yeah.
Encryption, first and foremost, which scrambles your data into gibberish for anyone trying to snoop.
Okay.
Then there's disabling SSID broadcast, which hides the network name from casual scans, though it's not a foolproof solution, it adds a layer.
Hiding the name.
And MAC filtering, which restricts network access to only devices with pre-approved MAC addresses, like a VIP guest list for your Wi-Fi.
Okay, those all sound like sensible precautions. What about wired networks? They always feel inherently safer since you have to physically plug in, right?
Yeah. While physical access is required, wired networks can still be vulnerable if left unsecured. Unauthorized physical access to network ports can lead to data breaches and the introduction of malware. Imagine someone just waltzing into an office and plugging their infected laptop into an unused network jack.
Yikes. So, even with physical connections, security is still paramount.
Absolutely. Stringent access controls, robust encryption protocols, regular security assessments, and even something as simple as removing unused patch cables are all important for keeping wired networks secure.
Gotcha. And then there's Bluetooth, which we use for everything from headphones to connecting our phones to our cars these days. Is that another potential doorway for trouble?
It can be, yeah. Bluetooth's convenient pairing feature, while user-friendly, can also be a vulnerability if not managed carefully. Attackers with specialized tools can potentially exploit the pairing process to infiltrate devices and compromise data.
So just leaving Bluetooth enabled on all my devices all the time might not be the wisest move.
Probably not, no. The source recommends being proactive by enabling Bluetooth only when you actually need it and disabling it when you don't.
Okay, simple enough.
This significantly reduces the window of opportunity for attackers. And, as always, keeping your devices updated with the latest security patches is crucial for addressing any potential Bluetooth weaknesses.
This is a real eye-opener. Okay, next up. Open service ports. This sounds a bit like we're talking about a ship with too many unlocked hatches.
That's a great analogy. Think of service ports as virtual doorways on your computer or network that allow different kinds of network traffic to pass through, like a specific port for web browsing traffic or another for email. Unsecured open service ports are like leaving those hatches wide open and unguarded. Attackers can scan for these open ports and then try to exploit them to gain unauthorized access or run malicious code.
So the fewer of these unnecessary open ports I have, the better protected I am. Makes sense.
Precisely. Regular port scanning to identify which ports are open and closing any that aren't absolutely essential is a vital step in minimizing your potential attack surface.
Another seemingly small thing that can be a huge problem is using default credentials. I mean, who hasn't just skipped changing the default password on a new gadget?
Unfortunately, a lot of people do, and attackers are counting on it. Default usernames and passwords, which are often the same across many devices of the same type and are frequently publicly available online.
Publicly available? Oh, man.
Yeah, they're a glaring point of weakness. Attackers can leverage these defaults to gain easy, unauthorized access to systems and applications. It's like hiding the spare key to your house under the doormat and then posting a picture of the doormat on social media.
That paints a very clear and slightly terrifying picture. Now let's move on to something a bit more complex, supply chain vulnerabilities. This sounds like it could have a ripple effect across many organizations.
It definitely can. A supply chain is essentially the network of all the different companies and processes involved in getting a product or service to the end user, from the initial design to the moment it reaches your hands.
Okay.
Vulnerabilities can exist at any point along this chain.
So if even one of those companies in the chain has weak security, it could potentially compromise everyone else they work with.
Exactly. The source highlights a few key players in the supply chain and the unique risks they present. Managed service providers, or MSPs.
MSPs.
They're third-party companies that handle IT needs for other businesses. A single security breach at an MSP can have a cascading effect, impacting numerous clients simultaneously. That's why it's crucial for organizations to demand robust security standards from their MSPs, including regular audits and strict access controls.
That makes a lot of sense. What about our regular vendors and suppliers, the ones we just buy stuff from?
Well, vendors, who often have access to sensitive data, can also be a significant source of risk if their own security measures are inadequate. Organizations really should conduct thorough risk assessments of their vendors and clearly define security expectations in their contracts.
Right, get it in writing.
Similarly, suppliers who provide goods or services that are integral to the process need to have their security practices carefully scrutinized. It's all about practicing due diligence and understanding that your overall security posture is only as strong as the weakest link in your supply chain.
It sounds like a lot of trust is involved, but you also need to have verification built in. Okay. Now, the last big category we have here is human vectors, often referred to as social engineering. This is all about manipulating people, right? Not the tech.
Precisely. Instead of trying to find a technical flaw in a system, attackers often find it easier to hack the human by exploiting our natural psychological tendencies.
Like trust or curiosity.
Exactly. The ultimate goal is to manipulate victims into giving away confidential information or granting unauthorized access.
And phishing is a prime example of this, isn't it? But the source makes a distinction between regular phishing and spear phishing. What's the key difference there?
You're right. Phishing is a broad, untargeted attack using deceptive emails, messages, or websites. Attackers cast a wide net, hoping that someone, somewhere, will take the bait.
Like phishing with a net?
Yeah, basically. Hoping someone clicks a malicious link or provides sensitive information. Spear phishing, on the other hand, is much more laser-focused. It targets specific individuals or groups, like maybe the finance department of a company.
Okay.
These emails are meticulously crafted to appear highly authentic and create a strong sense of urgency, making the intended victim much more likely to fall for the trick.
So spear phishing is like a tailored attack, making it potentially much more effective because it feels so personalized and legitimate.
Exactly right. More dangerous in many ways.
And we touched on smishing earlier. That's essentially phishing delivered via text message.
Exactly. The same deceptive tactics, but they arrive in your SMS inbox, still trying to get you to click or give up info.
Now, misinformation and disinformation feel a little different. They're more about spreading false information, maybe. How do they play into the world of cyber threats?
That's a good question. While they don't always directly lead to a technical security breach, misinformation, which is the unintentional spread of false information, and disinformation, the deliberate spread of false information with malicious intent, can be powerful tools for attackers.
How so?
They can be used to manipulate public opinion, sow chaos and panic, or even trick people into taking actions that ultimately compromise their security. The example in our sources of a fake news article claiming a social media platform was shutting down.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about things like that.
It illustrates how this kind of fabricated information can create confusion and erode trust, potentially making people more vulnerable to other scams down the line.
I see. It's about creating an environment of uncertainty where people are more likely to make mistakes that attackers can exploit. What about just straight-up impersonation?
Impersonation is a classic social engineering technique where attackers simply pretend to be someone they're not to gain your trust. They might pose as someone from law enforcement, a representative from a trusted company, or even a help desk technician.
The fake IT guy.
Right, to trick you into revealing information you wouldn't normally share.
And then there's business email compromise, or BEC. That sounds like a particularly costly threat for organizations.
It is indeed very costly. BEC involves attackers gaining control of legitimate business email accounts to orchestrate financial fraud. A common tactic is the invoice scam.
Invoice scams?
Yeah, where they intercept or create fake invoices and change the payment details, tricking the victim into sending funds directly to the attacker's bank account instead of the legitimate vendor.
Ouch. Pretexting sounds similar to impersonation, but maybe with a more elaborate backstory.
That's a great way to put it. Pretexting involves an attacker creating and using a fabricated scenario, the pretext, to try and extract sensitive information from a victim. For example, an attacker might call pretending to be a tech support agent, needing to verify your account details to fix a non-existent problem. They build a whole story around it.
Ah, okay. Watering hole attacks. That sounds intriguing and a little bit scary.
They are quite insidious, yeah. Think of a watering hole in the natural world where animals gather to drink.
Okay.
In a watering hole attack, Cybercriminals compromise legitimate websites that they know their target audience frequently visits. By injecting malicious code onto these trusted sites, they can then infect the devices of unsuspecting visitors. The 2013 attack on the U.S. Department of Labor's website is a notable example
Wow.
of how even seemingly secure and reputable platforms can be weaponized this way.
Wow, that's a sobering thought. And brand impersonation is something we see all the time, right? Fake emails or websites that look identical to a legitimate bank or online retailer. Exactly. Attackers capitalize on the trust and familiarity associated with well-known brands to deceive users into divulging sensitive information like login credentials or financial details. Being extra vigilant and always verifying the authenticity of websites and emails is crucial to avoid falling victim to brand impersonation scams. Check that URL carefully.
Good advice. Finally, there's typosquatting. That's simply preying on our tendency to make typos when typing web addresses, isn't it? Like fat-fingering a key.
That's precisely it. Attackers register domain names that are very similar to legitimate ones, often with minor misspellings or a character added or omitted. Their hope is that users will accidentally mistype the intended URL and land on their malicious site instead, which might be designed to steal login credentials or install malware. The typosquatting attack targeting Twitter back in 2011 really highlights how effective this seemingly simple trick can be. It's honestly astonishing how many different angles these attackers can come from. So, if I'm understanding correctly, it's not just about sophisticated hacking tools. A huge number of these threats exploit basic human behaviors and vulnerabilities in our everyday systems. Things like checking email, plugging in a USB drive, or even just a moment of carelessness when typing a web address.
Precisely, you've nailed it. Cyber threats are incredibly diverse, targeting everything from deeply technical vulnerabilities in software to the intricacies of human psychology. Cultivating a strong awareness of these common threat vectors and attack surfaces is the absolute first and arguably most crucial step in effectively protecting yourself and your organization in today's digital landscape.
This has been incredibly insightful. It really makes you think twice about all the potential risks lurking in our online interactions. So for you tuning in, maybe take a moment to consider which of these threat vectors might pose the biggest risk for you personally.
Good exercise.
And perhaps identify one small, actionable step you can take today to strengthen your digital defenses. It could be something as straightforward as changing a default password you've been putting off, or maybe just exercising a bit more caution before clicking on that next email link or text message. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.